Hola,
Hola.
how are you?
Good. How are you? You are good morning, I guess.
Yes, it is the morning here. It's 8 a.m. How about you? It's 6 p.m. for you, isn't it?
It is 6 p.m. So we are ending our Saturday over here. It is a nice, beautiful, about to be a beautiful sunset behind me. So,
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome. You mentioned to me when we were chatting on Instagram about Mexican food and your
Yes.
background in Mexican food. Um, how is Mexican food represented in the Virgin Islands? Because, and I've never been to the Virgin Islands, as I said before, and my conception or preconception of the Virgin Islands is like far remote and it's all luxury, hotels, and therefore the Mexican food or the food that you see there is, geared towards, that type of demographic. But what's the reality? Because I wouldn't know.
So the reality is the Mexican culture is not really represented here. The most Mexican place here is called Gringos. If that gives you, if that like literally, that's the name of the restaurant. It's called Gringos. And when people ask me, they're like, "Do you want to go to Gringos?" I'm like, "Why would I pay for that when I can go home and make myself a quesadilla like way faster, way better, and with tortillas that I actually like?" So the product here is geared basically for American tourists. The island is geared for American tourists.
Mm,
Um, so even you don't even get to see specifically on St. John. You don't even really see West Indian cuisine as much. You have to find those small hidden pockets.
okay.
So the cuisine and the food is geared for New Englanders, geared for kind of that statesider tourist that's kind of has a generic palate. And here you go, we're going to call this Mexican. I remember one year they did a special on tamales.
Gotcha.
And I mean, it was kind of towards Christmas time. So I was like, oh, they have some tamales. I'm going to go check it out. And it was on this big plate. It was $25. And it was basically la masa. And they put some pulled pork and all of these like stuff on top of it and everything. And I was like, I literally looked to the waiter and I was like, what is that? And I felt so bad. He like stopped and he was like, well, that is a traditional Mexican tamal that they wrap. And I'm looking at him like, no, that's not. That's nothing. That is no tradition in it. There's nothing of that. And so I have found myself actually digging deeper to kind of connect with my own food and my own culture, because I think that's where, as humanity, we connect is through food. Like, we're across the world on different sides, but yet you and I can have a conversation about birria and barbacoa and like the differences and whatever that may be. But because we're connected by the way we use these ingredients and the flavors and the memories that take us back to these things. And to me, when people think Mexican, I think they think Tex-Mex. They think it's smothered in enchilada sauce and yellow cheese.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, I push really hard to show them, like, I made shrimp cocktail. I'm like, but this is Mexican shrimp cocktail with, I made the shrimp broth and I cooked it and there's cucumbers and avocado and you eat it with a spoon. And it's weird. They're like, well, how do you eat it? And it's a whole different introduction of, these are Mexican flavors. We eat a lot of seafood, Puerto Nuevo style lobster. That's what I grew up with.
Okay.
So it's amazing as I leave California, the Southwest, and more further away from people from Mexico, basically, that I start to realize that the Mexican culture is not really known beyond, I say, once you're about 2 hours past the border, it gets a little bit more and more scary on knowing the culture and stuff. But you do find pockets,
Yep.
and just like everywhere, like you're gonna find a Lebanese, you're gonna find Egypt, whatever it may be. Like, you find pockets of your culture everywhere, which is kind of beautiful. But I think I can count, I think there's maybe 2 other Mexican people on island.
Yeah.
If you're
Okay.
listening, St. John, and you're out there, hi. I don't know you. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting to be here and also being the representation of Mexican, which I'm like, I'm Mexican American. I don't even, I'm a little, like, I've lost a little bit of it, and I'm the representation of culturally accurate Mexican. So I think that's the interesting part.
And you just made a very good point. I think about reconnecting to your roots and reconnecting to to your heritage. That's my story too. The reason why I started getting more educated and started to learning more about Mexican food and cooking more Mexican food is because I didn't have it. When I moved to Australia, suddenly there was no Mexican food, and the one that it was here, it was either misrepresented, like it was more Tex-Mex, geared towards more American food, or the Mexican food that you can find here, it was very expensive. It was very good. It's traditional, but very expensive, which is another thing because we're not used to it, right? Both in Mexico and in the States, you're not used to having Mexican food being expensive. It's actually your cheap food. It's your default. You're defaulting to Mexican food for being, your midnight tacos that are like $1 or $1 tacos on Tuesdays.
You're drinking and you're ordering, you're throwing up numbers, and by the end of it, you're like, oh, $20, cool, no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Here,
and then
here will be a fortune. For 20 tacos, you will be paying over $100. So the difference are, but that lack of, or that need for Mexican, drives you to start, like you were saying, drives you to understand more, to learn more, to talk more about it, to cook it more, to do more about it, because you miss it, and that missing it, drives you to do that.
Yes, I think it's also it's you miss it, and then you find your community through it. Like you find your people that you're like, oh, look, I like this. Or even you open other people's eyes. So when I was like, I'm missing tamales for Christmas. I'm like, that's just, I need to eat so many that by the time January comes around and I'm eating my rosca, I don't want another tamal. Like I want to, that's how much I want to have them. But obviously around here, so I had my mom send me corn husks, the chiles, all of that stuff in the mail, and then I made them with my students, and I made it a class, and I made it something that I was like, not only you guys have shared your traditions through the West Indian culture and what it means to be a Virgin Islander, but let me share you mine. I think that's a beautiful way. It's like, let me share my plate with you because this is what makes my heart happy, and maybe you might like it as well.